Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the SimCity 4 Masterclass. My name is SmileyMK93, and in this video I'm going to talk to you about hexadecimal numbers. This is a bit of theory, important theory, that we will need to know when we start modding SimCity 4 and working with modding tools such as the Reader and SimCity 4 tool. It's maybe a bit of a dry subject. It does involve maths, as you might imagine. I know a lot of you don't like maths, so tough luck. This is probably going to be a bit of a dry video. I'm sorry about that, but you do need to know it if you want to do modding. So let's get started. In order to explain hexadecimal numbers, I think we first need to have a look at number systems in general. Let's start with our own number system, which, as you may see and check, has 10 digits. We have 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 and 9. Now, in addition to these 10 digits, we have something called place value. Place value allows us to write bigger and smaller numbers. So if we want to write 10, we would write 1, 0. But the 1 being in the first position, or in the tens column, as you see here, I know we've got 6 in the tens column, allows us to indicate that that 1 is worth 10 and not 1. We use the 0 to indicate that there are no units. For example, in this number here, which I've got written in this table, we have 7 hundreds, 9 tens, 6 ones, and then 5 0.1s. And that, of course, is how we write 796.5 in our standard number system. The position of each digit represents the value. That's why it's called place value or positional number system. So place value is important. Now we have a name for this number system. It's called base 10 or decimal. Decimal coming from the Latin deca, meaning 10. As you might imagine, that's because there are 10 digits. Not hard to work out. And this presumably, correct me if this is wrong, but well, we have 10 fingers. And I imagine that's how the Western world learned to count, with 10 fingers. Or it may have been something to do with the French, who liked to have liked things to be multiples of 10 when they did the French Revolution and all that. But we use 10 fingers, and we learn to count on our fingers in school: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, etc., etc. However, at the end of the day, yes, it helps us because we've got 10 fingers, but at the end of the day, it was our choice. We didn't have to choose 10 digits. Could have chosen 12 digits, 16 digits, 2 digits, 20 digits. I know some cultures do use other numbers of digits, but at the end of the day, our choice was arbitrary. We could have chosen any number of digits we liked. And of course, in maths we like to keep things general. So there is no reason at all why we can't count using a different number of digits, at least in an abstract way. So let's have a look at a different number system, one that uses a different number of digits. Something that you've probably heard of called binary numbers. They have 2 digits, because it's base 2, and it's binary, coming from the Latin bi, meaning 2. As I said, it has 2 digits. Now what are these 2 digits? You probably know, because you've probably heard of binary numbers. They are, of course, 0 and 1. So how do we write bigger numbers? Well, as with base 10, as with decimal numbers, we have place value. The difference being that now, because it's 2 digits, we have to make each column represent a power of 2. Rather than a power of 10. So for instance, to write 10 in binary, we write, that's the binary number 10, or the decimal number 2, we write 1, 0. Where the first number represents 2s, represents 1, 2, the second number represents 0, 1s, and bigger numbers work in the same way. So for example here, I've got a 8-digit binary number, which is 10101010. So that's 128. That's 1 128 plus 0 64s plus 1 32 plus no 16s plus 1 8 plus no 4s plus 1 2 plus no 1s. As you can see, I've written in brackets each column is a power of 2 because there are 2 digits. And if you work it out, this is equal to 170 in base 10. You can work that out by adding up all the columns. That's how place value works. Effectively you do a sum product or a dot product. So you do 1 times 128, 1 times 32, 0 times 64, and you get the idea. So you do that conversion, and of course other bases work in the same way. So if you wanted base 3, this would be, I can't get my mouse, but oh, there we go, got my mouse now. This would be 1, so this would be 3, so this would be 3 squared, which is 9, this would be 3 cubed, which is 27s, 81s, 243s, I think, 729s, and so on. You get the idea. And of course, if you want decimal numbers, you'd have 1/3, 1/9, 1/27, dot dot dot. And in binary, you have halves, quarters, eighths. I think you get the idea. Now, of course, this is maths. We need some notation. In particular, we might want to work with different bases, because we want to be converting with bases. We're talking about different number systems and different number bases. So we need to know which number is to what base. And the way we do that in standard maths notation is to write the base of each number in decimal as a subscript next to the number. Note each base is in decimal because that's our standard number system. So hence base 2, base 3, base 4, base 10. Yeah, so the base is always expressed in decimal. We don't write base 10 to represent binary. Even though if we're thinking in binary, base 2 is base 10, but then we just get confused. Right, so stick with the decimal when we're referring to the base of a number system. And it's a subscript, which looks a little bit like, let me get my mouse back. This is a subscript. It's written below the standard text. And it's used to represent the fact that 9, this is 9 to base 10, this is 9 to base 2, 1001, 1811, and of course that's 10 in base 9, because in base 9 you have 9 digits, 0 to 8. And so when you want to make it represent 9, you have to have a 1 in the 9th column and a 0 in the 1's column. So you can see how that works. Now let's get back to binary numbers. As I said at the start of this video, you've probably heard of them. The reason you've heard of them is because of how important they are in computing. They are essentially the fundamental building blocks to how computers work. Now, I do not pretend to be an expert in the inner workings of computers, so what I am about to say may be slightly wrong or inaccurate, but as I understand it, each portion of data has a unique address, and the address is a binary code. It's a series of 1s and 0s, but as I show you here, the series of 1s and 0s is like a series of pulses. So you have a series of high voltage pulses or high voltage signals and a low voltage signal. The high voltage signal represents 1, the low voltage signal represents 0. So in effect you can think of it as being like on or off. And by using these signals, putting them through logic gates and doing things like that, we can do operations on them, we can store them, we can essentially do whatever we want. There's a nice little video by Numberphile called Domino Edition, which explains this in a bit more detail, and I think I'll link you guys to that video in the description because it will help. Mr. Matt Parker will probably be able to explain it a lot better than I can. But yeah, that's basically how binary numbers work in computers and why they're so important. However, there is a bit of a problem. They get very big very quickly because there's only 2 digits. We start having to carry over and start having to use a huge number of digits for very small numbers. For example, if we want to write 1000 in binary, that's 10 digits. If we want to write 1,000,000 in binary, which is not a big number in the scheme of computers, that requires 20 digits. A billion is 30 digits, and even a billion is not a huge number in the scale of computing. But yeah, you get the idea. This gets horribly complicated horribly quickly. And on a modern computer, you're going to have a 32-bit or a 64-bit, in my case, operating system. That means each of these little addresses that the computer uses to refer to bits of data has a 32-digit binary digit or a 64-digit binary address. Now imagine if you're having to enumerate all those binary digits, going to check each one in turn, get it right. You know, it's too much. It's just too much. You can't. I mean, 64-digit binary numbers are pretty difficult to handle. So we need something else. We need a way to encode it in a simpler way, in an efficient way, in a compact way. The way we do that is just to use a bigger base. If we can somehow find a base that can encode a binary number efficiently, then we're done. We've got a nice way to encode binary addresses. Now, as you can imagine, this must be a power of 2, because we've got 2 digits. So, because computers work in binary, otherwise we'd waste numbers, because if we worked in base 10, say, each digit would represent, then we would have to have, our first 8 choices would be fine, those would be 3 binary digits. Then when we get to the 4th, we'd need 1001 for 9 and 1010 for 10. But then we waste all the other combinations with the 1 as the first digit. So it's just not a very efficient system, base 10, for encoding binary numbers. So we can't use it. So instead, we need a base that's a power of 2. And to encode binary numbers efficiently and binary addresses efficiently. So that, ladies and gentlemen, is where hexadecimal comes in. Hexadecimal numbers are base 16. You can check that's a power of 2, and so you can see that each digit of a hexadecimal encoding will be 4 binary digits, because one hexadecimal digit will be any one of 16 choices. 16 is the power of 2. To encode 16 choices, we need 4 binary digits, from 0000 for 0, or the first choice, up to 11111. Oh, sorry, 1111 for 15. That's the 16th choice. That's 16 numbers. You agree? Using our notion of place value and all that. And so you can see, because 16 is power 2, if we use base 16, we can convert easily into binary code. For example, 22 represent in hexadecimal to represent 0010, the one going in the 2's column, 0010. Except the first one wouldn't be a 2's column, it would be a whatever column that is, 2 to the 6, which is 64's column. And so with 22 in hexadecimal, we can write a number that is, I believe, it's 66 in decimal. Oh, that's not, I don't know about what it is, but you get the idea, right? It's efficient. Base 16 numbers are, as you can imagine, called hexadecimal numbers. Hex standing for 6, decimal for 10, and 6 plus 10, 16. You get the idea, that's Latin again. Or for short, because hexadecimal is a bit of a mouthful, we might call them hex numbers or hex code, and that's probably how I'll refer to the hexadecimal numbers as we go through the rest of this video. Of course, being base 16, hexadecimal has 16 digits. So what are those 16 digits? We start with our first 10 digits, which you're all familiar with. 0, 1, 2, 3, ... up to 9. Then we have to add 6 more digits. Now what are those 6 digits? Well, we don't have any other symbols that represent numbers, or single symbols that represent numbers. Instead, we have to substitute in some different symbols. And the symbols we use are these guys. A, B, C, D, E and F. Those are our 6 extra digits. So you can imagine, just to clarify, so counting, we go 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, A, B, C, D, E, F, and then 10. 10 in hexadecimal is 16 in decimal. And then 11, 12, ... And counting in hexadecimal tens, it's 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90. A0, B0, C0, D0, E0, F0, and then 100. You get the idea. And so A is 10, B is 11. There you go. At this point you're probably a little bit confused. A is a letter. No, it is a letter. We're used to A being a letter, aren't we? So how can it be a number? Well, it's a bit like algebra. In algebra you're taught to use typically x, for example, little x. And little x represents an unknown quantity, which you typically have to find. And so the concept is we use x as a symbol to represent a quantity that we don't know the value of. The fact that we don't know the value is not particularly important, but the concept is we use the letter to represent the number. It is a symbol. We don't think of it as x, we think of it as just an object that we have rules, that we've defined some rules on. Which is 7. 7 is a symbol. It's nothing more than that. It's just in the context of mathematics and English, we have defined 7 to give it a precise meaning. And so, let me summarise that in text. In language and maths, we use symbols to represent things. And each symbol is assigned a precise meaning. So, for example, A in English. A is a letter, but it's just a symbol on a piece of paper. Just something we write. But in English, we assign it a sound. So it is a symbol that represents the sound A or A or depending on the context of the word and the letters around it. And numbers are the same thing. Digits and numbers are no different. 0 is just a symbol that we have defined to represent a quantity with no value. Similarly, 1. 1 is a symbol that we've given a precise meaning to. It is a symbol that represents a value or quantity equivalent to one thing. And so there's no reason why A, B, C, D, E, and F in the context of hexadecimal numbers are just symbols. That's it. That's all they are. Don't think of them as letters. They're just symbols. And in hexadecimal, we define them as the 6 extra digits that we need to complete our system. So A is just a symbol that we define to be equal to 10. Or more accurately, A is a symbol that we define to represent 10 in our hexadecimal number system. Similarly with B, C, D, E, and F. So that's how A can be a number, because A is just a symbol at the end of the day. Going back to hexadecimal numbers, hex numbers follow a place value system, just like any other base, just like decimal and binary. Except this time, of course, the columns are 16. So, in this example, we have 7 in the 16 to the 3's column, the 4096's. C, the 256th column, that represents 12, but we have a digit for 12 in our system, which is C, because that's the 12th digit. Or rather, no, sorry, that's the 13th digit, but because we start at 0, that's the digit that represents 12, C. Then F, the last digit, the 16th digit, which represents 15, so 15 16s. And then 9 ones. And of course, if you do the scalar product, you get a number which is equivalent to 31,993 in base 10. And I worked that out on a calculator. Now, this is the real advantage of hexadecimal. Apart from the fact it's an efficient binary encoding, but this is why it's an efficient binary encoding. And why it offers not just an efficiency advantage over base 10, but another advantage over base 10. As you can see, to write a 5-digit number in base 10, we only needed 4 digits in base 16. Isn't that interesting? And so, we have more choices for the same number of digits. We can't write 10,000 in 4 digits in base 10, but we can in hexadecimal. Because, well, this is 4096. We only need 2 of these, and then we can make up to 10,000 with the rest. So you need 4. And, in addition, for the same number of digits, we get more choice. So, for a 4-digit decimal number, we'd have 10,000 choices. You agree? 10 times 10 times 10 times 10. For a binary number, 4-digit binary number, we only have 2 to the 4, which is 16 choices. That's pretty pitiful. But for a 4-digit hex number, we have 16 to the 4 choices, which is... let me get my calculator out. Which I think is 65,536 numbers can be encoded in just 4 digits, compared to 10,000 with decimal. Isn't that amazing? And if you want 8 digits, let's think. 8-digit binary number, 2 to the 8, 256 numbers. Base 10, 10 million numbers, 100 million numbers. Hexadecimal, 8 digits, 4.29 billion different numbers in just 8 digits. That is the big advantage of hexadecimal. Not only does it give us a binary coding that is efficient and doesn't waste numbers, it gives us a much bigger range of possible values. Much more choice. And that is a huge advantage when we come to things like SimCity 4. Because it gives us so many options for choice of exemplar numbers, reference numbers for lots, model numbers, you name it. Which means we have far more choice, far less chance of conflict, importantly, and generally speaking, a more stable program. And it gives us more room to add more of those lovely plugins and mods that we like. And that's why SimCity 4 uses 8-digit hex numbers. It stores reference numbers for files, i.e. exemplar IDs, for those of you who know what that is. We'll cover those a little later in a future video. And property values for buildings and lots are stored as hex numbers, because they're more efficient and they transfer easily to binary code. And just to hammer home the point, each object in SimCity 4 has a unique TGI reference, that's type group instance. Again, we'll cover that in a future video in more detail, but for now you can think of it as a sequence of 3 8-digit hex numbers. So in theory, we can have 16 to the 24, which is this massive number here, 7.9 times 10 to the 28, different objects in the game, in theory. In practice it's less than that because different file types have specific type numbers, but you get the idea. There is a huge range of choice for SimCity 4. And there's so little chance of conflict because we've chosen a number system an encoding system that uses so many digits and gives us so many choices. So we have a more stable program with more stable mods, and we have an efficient coding system. And there's something important that you need to know in SimCity 4. You can identify a hex number in SimCity 4 because it's always prefixed with 0x. It's the number 0 followed by the letter X. That is something that arises because SimCity 4 was coded in C++, and C++ uses 0x to deal with hexadecimal numbers. Apparently. I don't know much about that. I'm not a professional programmer. Or a programmer for that matter. So now we know how hexadecimal numbers work in SimCity 4, how they work all together, and how they're useful. Let's look at how we might want to convert to hexadecimal from decimal. Well, the good news is we don't need to worry about it. In modding tools, the popular modding tools like iReader, SimCity 4 tool, the conversion's automatic. We just type in a decimal number and it will convert it. Nice and easy. Done. If you want to do some checks or input the hex number yourself, we have on every computer, on every Windows computer, a calculator. The calculator can work with integer hex numbers. In fact, let me show you that now. I'm going to press Windows R, I'm going to type in calc, you can see that here, C-A-L-C, press enter, we get this calculator that comes up. Now we need to go to View, Programmer. You can see on the left we have some options: bin for binary, oct for octal, that's base 8, dec for decimal, and hex for hexadecimal. So if we want to do a conversion, let's say, I don't know, let's try a million. Type in a million in decimal, then we press this number to convert to hex, and we get the answer, F4240. Done. Similarly, converting back, clear it, convert back, let's just pick a random hex number, go 248D62F7. Say, I just made that up off the top of my head. To convert back to decimal, nice and easy. Press the stick button, and we get, what's that? 613,245,687. That's how you do it. Nice and easy. It can only work with integer numbers, this calculator. So, for example, if you did, clear it quickly, go into hex mode, 1 divided by 2. Sorry, I didn't do that right. 1 divided by 2 equals 0. Doesn't get that right. Can't handle it. 1 divided by 2 in hex is actually 0.8 if you're interested. So now we know how to do hex numbers on modding tools and calculators. You can do that. And for small numbers, we can just use the place value system to do the conversion automatically, like I showed you. You can do for 2-digit hex number, it's just something times 16. Remember, A is 10, B is 11, C is 12, D is 13, E is 14, and F is 15. And then add on however many ones there are in the ones column. It's not too difficult to work out. So let me summarize this video. A number system has 10 digits, has any number of digits we want. We can. This is maths, so we have to keep things general. But normally, in our standard number system, we use 10 digits, called base 10. Those digits are 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. Hexadecimal numbers is base 16. It's 16 digits, 0 to 9, and A to F. Remember, A to F are just symbols that represent the values 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, and 15. They're just symbols that represent digits. Don't think of them as letters in this case. Importantly, they follow a place value system just like decimal numbers. So that's how we write bigger and small numbers. And that together with the increased number of digits, allows us many more choices for exemplar IDs, property values, gives us a huge number of more choices, reduces the chance of conflict, makes our mods more stable, more likely to work, makes everything nice and harmonious. And of course, because 16 is a power of 2, it means that each digit corresponds to a 4-digit binary number, which makes the computer able to transfer the hex code into binary code really, really easily and efficiently with no waste. And so that concludes this video on hexadecimal numbers. Thank you very much for watching. Please leave a comment if you have any questions or suggestions for further Masterclass videos. I've been Smiley MK, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye for now.